Welcome back to the next episode where we're taking a look at some creative prompts inspired by The Day Is Done by Lester del Rey. So it took me a little moment, and I still tried to keep focused on the idea of using these as science fiction stories for the most part. It's a little hard when everybody's a caveman. So there are a limited number of things I can do with a caveman that makes it a science fiction story. Let's start with idea number one. This sort of a classic trope at this point, where it's Neanderthal frozen in ice, but taking a little bit different approach to this. I kind of want to see it as a way of, if you could freeze a human being and then use like an MRI scanner or something like one to sort of tap into the brain, and using predictive AI figure out what their memories or thoughts are. Like we have some experimentation going on right now where you can take a human being, put their head in a scanner, and sort of have them look at a picture of a cat and have a machine extract a prediction of what they're seeing. And if you have especially with like motion pictures where like the picture of the head is moving, like GIFs or things like that, you can actually watch frame for frame how the image pulled from the brain of a person is paralleling the image pulled from the screen of the images you're showing the person. And so we have sort of the ability to do some of that. Imagining a time in the future where we're better able to actually just full on read minds and read memories. Now imagine having a mind or a brain frozen in ice of a primitive cave person, and being able to imagine what those memories would be using a device. I think it would be fascinating to write a story of finding a frozen, preserved prehistoric human and scanning their brain and getting almost like journal entries of the life of one of these beings. And it's like, I kind of want it to actually happen, but if we can't get it in the real world, can we get a story about it? So that's idea number one. Idea number two is, of course, Neanderthal cloning. But unlike you usually get for something like this, I don't want to necessarily see like, well, we were going to clone one Neanderthal. Like, no, I think it would be a worthwhile experiment to build a community of Neanderthals. And I kind of want to see a story of bringing up a group of Neanderthals as a small base of human beings, not a town, not a village, not necessarily separated to that degree, but possibly, because I don't think it would be easy for them to be able to exist in our culture in a way that would let them interact and participate on a regular basis. So like a farm upstate somewhere where they're raising a family of Neanderthals. I don't know. It seems like there's got to be a way to see how different and how alike they could be with us, and how we could interact and learn from each other without, throwing them into like you don't get 100-acre wood and then you throw them out into the woods and let them live like primitive apes just to see if they would develop their own culture. reasonably from an anthropological point of view, that's just not going to happen. So there's a part of me that's kind of like, if we give them some of our culture and then just, I kind of want to see who they are and who they become and write that as a story. Okay, idea number 3. I kind of at one point was kind of curious if they would do this. I wanted it to happen in the story, is the idea of a Neanderthal discovering something that we haven't even discovered ourselves yet, like a technology or an ability or a scientific, explanation for things that we just haven't been able to figure out yet. And like them knowing it and us knowing that the last beings who knew or understood this died out before we ourselves were capable of knowing or understanding it. It's sort of like the mysteriously knowledgeable beings in some mythology that we have out there. Like, did they know stuff that we don't know yet? Did they have an understanding that we lack? Okay, and then number 4. At one point, the main character, I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce the gibberish names they made up for the characters, but at one point, the character was talking about the fact that he used to worship a sun god, and in the days of his people, it was cooler and his people were thriving under their sun god, and now it felt like the Cro-Magnon man's sun god was the one who was in the sky now and had destroyed or replaced theirs. And I kind of wanted to see this primitive cave being decide to take it upon himself to avenge his sun god by slaying their sun god and go on a quest to slay the god. And I don't know how that story would end up. Would he end up in the distant north where it's a cooler place and maybe find more of his people and then somehow imagine that he's found the land his god retreated to? I don't know. I'm curious, how would you tell that story and have it make sense? I kind of want to know. So if you make it, please let me know. And then number 5, they talk about how the Cro-Magnons, when they're travelers, they're nomads, they were visiting another region, and one of them found a small family of Neanderthals in a northern region, and it's mentioned to this caveman, Neanderthal, that there are more like him out there, and he goes to ask about it, and I think it's stupid that the story just kills them off. It says, oh, no, we found them a few years ago, but they didn't survive. We left their region, and then we went back to their region, and we found them dead. Like, that was such a cop-out. Like, I wanted our character, the one Neanderthal that we had, to go on a quest to find the rest of his people. And I wanted it to go further than that. I wanted him to sort of start to try to collect the Neanderthal up and form. This is where it gets really weird. This is where I go really weird with this. I wanted him to collect the rest of the Neanderthals after he'd been sort of living partially among the Cro-Magnon and learning new things and new ways to survive and how they worked as a community to do things. And I wanted the things he'd learned to be an advantage that they'd pick up, while they had advantages over the Cro-Magnon that were dying out with them. So when you get them collecting into a community together, I wanted it to sort of be like the origin of a new history where tides changed and the Neanderthal either assembled into enough of a community, a city of Babylon or something like that, that they were able to build their population back up and make a parallel civilization that we can end up with nations of Neanderthals in an alternate history. Or even getting to the point where it gave them a critical edge in the long run, that when we had one of those mini ice ages that sort of brought human population, Cro-Magnon population, down to a single 10,000 to 1,000 individuals. Like if the Neanderthals were able to cope better with those circumstances, maybe they are the ones that survived as a civilization. It's like I kind of wanted to see that kind of spelled out a little bit, explore that possibility of that caveman goes and finds and reunites his people with learning a few tricks from Cro-Magnon, making it so that they can thrive again. Which sort of brings us around to number 6, which this one is a little bit following in some of that. I kind of wanted, like, I was a fan of the illustrated Dinotopia books when I was younger. And I kind of wanted to do a lost city, a lost land of Neanderthals. Maybe they had their own technology and maybe they just went into hiding, and their lost land has them developing on a parallel level to us and having their little utopian Shangri-La kind of civilization hidden somewhere in the world, and discovering that and seeing who they are and who they became, and as a parallel to us, having our cousins back. I think that would be an interesting story worth telling too. So I'm kind of curious to see if anybody's interested in doing anything with any of these stories. If you do, let me know. I will probably play with a few of them myself. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. All right. Take care and have a good night.